the WFPC-3 camera, right? That was the last camera installed.
Right.
Okay. So when they service, what altitude is Hubble at when STS goes up to service it? I mean, does it drop down to an altitude where STS, can get within range of it? Or does STS go up to that altitude?
The space shuttle goes up to that altitude.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around this, because ISS is somewhere around 230, 240. Hubble's supposed to be almost 100 miles above ISS. But I've never seen any video from servicing where any STS mission has gone that far out above ISS. I mean, I know we have geosync out there, way above that, but I've never seen that. That's what I'm trying to look for. I'm trying to find video in NASA's archive where they actually show the mission with them approaching and doing the orbits to, gain altitude to get to Hubble. Or is there there's no other video available of that? I mean, I can understand if there is video and it's classified, that's completely understandable. No one's ever going to see that. That's classified data. But are there any open source videos that would show this?
They would actually show it from outside of the space shuttle. You talking about something watching the space shuttle?
Yeah, just showing STS actually getting ready to approach Hubble to capture it so it can be serviced.
No, I know no video showing that.
So, as Deputy Mission Operations Manager, and this is more of a mathematical question, maybe you can or cannot answer it. I had watched a video of Don Pettit talking about the tyranny of the rocket equation. So, based on the weight of Hubble, I'm still trying to figure out the math on how much fuel. Was there more than 93 or 95% fuel required to get 25,000-pound telescope up in geosync?
Are you talking about the fuel on the space shuttle?
Yeah, I mean when HST launched, when HST launched, that's 25,000 pounds.
They actually took us to the highest altitude possible that they could achieve.
And what was that?
With the space shuttle. Pardon?
What was that altitude?
Oh, I'd have to look that up. I don't know that number offhand.
Because I looked at about a dozen videos with telemetry data, and I always see STS separate from the main fuel tank at around 340, 350,000 feet, and then it continues on, accelerating and gaining velocity so it could get at terminal velocity of around 17,000. But then from there, I've never seen any other footage where STS is gone higher than ISS.
Well, it's certainly, like you said, we're about 100 miles above ISS.
Yeah, it's about 100. Now, let me. The one critical question I want to ask is this: are you familiar with the Federation Aeronautic International database, the FAI.org?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, I'm not.
Well, I am, and NASA's actually a member of FAI. Every single, I wouldn't say every single STS mission, but I'd say about 2/3 of the STS missions, specifically the servicing missions for HST, are in this database. It's FAI.org, Federation Aeronautic International. And when I put in the data for STS-31 on April 24th, 1990, nothing comes up. So I decided to use some other search query factors. I put in the crew members' names. Nothing comes up. I put in the STS mission number. Nothing comes up. So then I decided, okay, this falls under another category, and they have a list of category that describe, you know, one or more astronauts traveling to a celestial body, one or more astronauts, the amount of time they spent in space, so on and so forth, you know, durations. So I decided to click on the the selection that says greatest mass lifted to greatest altitude. Okay, so I automatically and logically assumed that, you know, STS was one of the greatest mass, if not the greatest mass lifted to greatest altitude of 330 miles, and there's nothing in the database. So over a period of 4 months, I kept checking the database, and FAI actually they shut down the website and then updated their database. And I'm not sure if this was direct, but I had sent them an email saying, you know, I'm looking for this particular mission on this particular date. Here goes the data. Is there a possibility that you have a problem updating your database? Could you please let me know or correct this? So a few days later, the website went down and it came back up. So I went searching for the data again. Now, I'm making a weekly habit of doing this. Checking, because maybe it's just some sort of database entry error that's common in just about every single local, national, international database with that type of error that may occur where maybe I'm not using the right search criteria. So I sent FAI.org an email asking them, could you please let me know if I'm not looking at this the right way? Could you locate this information in your database? They sent me back an email telling me, no, this was not registered in our database. No one filed an application for this to be put into the record book. So the conclusion I'm coming to is this: is there a reason why NASA didn't put HST in the record books, but they put every servicing mission in the record books? Because every servicing mission is listed, but STS-31 on April 24, 1990 is not listed.
I can't speak to that, but you know, obviously that's not a NASA database.
No, I do. I understand that, but again, I know it's not a database that NASA maintains in the database at all. So I please forgive me for saying this. Just please forgive me, and I don't want it to sound like some sort of crackpot idea or weird conspiracy, because that's not where I'm going with this. I have to say that I'm questioning that Hubble is even where they say it is. Because why wouldn't a $1.5 billion telescope, which is being used by every university around the world and every scientist who's involved in any kind of astrophysics, astrodynamics, just space exploration period, if we're getting these images from Hubble and Sophia, which is a 747 special purpose, with the same exact technical specifications when it comes to the telescope, Sophia's taking the same exact pictures of Hubble. And that's where the disparity in image analysis comes in, because I have a half a dozen photos I took off from NASA's website for Hubble and Sophia, and when I ran them through MATLAB's image processing toolbox for comparative analysis, those images came from the same source, and it wasn't at 330 miles above the surface of the Earth. So that's
interesting.
That's where I'm trying to understand. You know, I'm mostly into IT, sir. That's what I do. I'm into information technology, security engineering, and database management. And I know NASA has a massive database. You guys got over a dozen supercomputers all around the country, all around the world, that need to be managed just about by any and everybody. And their tasks are solely to keep the systems up to date and make sure they're operating efficiently and effectively, so that you can be able to go to your computer terminal and type up a query, and that information comes up literally in a nanosecond. That's how readily available it is. So my my problem right now is that it makes no sense to me and why STS-31 is not in the database. And you confirm that you've worked for them for 25 years, and nobody sitting at Goddard who's on the Hubble team has ever seen Hubble in real time conducting any operations on the ground that could have been shot from another satellite asset with a high definition camera and imaging to take a picture of Hubble. The only videos go ahead.
Why would you expect anybody to do that?
Well, I'm going to explain to you why. Because I used to be in the military, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. You don't send out a drone or an ROV and not have cameras on it so that you can track where it's going and where it's at and what might come in contact with it to interfere with its operations. And just to be honest with you, if paying my taxes, $1.5 billion, I'd want to keep an eye on that asset. Not just from signal and telemetry data, but I also, in the year, in the 21st century, I need to have eyes on when I need to have eyes on, just in case something went wrong.
Well, if something goes wrong, it wouldn't be something external necessarily.
No, that's not. I wouldn't say that that's so, because I know of at least a few events where Hubble had to be retasked because it had to avoid collision with something else that was up there.
Well, you're misinformed then.
Well, I can't be misinformed if the data actually came from NASA.
Could you point me to where it says that Hubble was actually retasked because of some external, I'll call it a threat, or external, object?
No, I mean, it had to be flipped around. It had to be maneuvered to go to either go to a higher altitude or change its trajectory because there was something up there that might have collided with another satellite from another country.
Well, you are sadly misinformed then.
Okay.
Because Hubble doesn't even have a propulsion system, so it can't possibly change its orbit by itself.
So how does it move position? How do you change the position of it?
I suggest that you button up a little bit more on.
No, I mean, I have the data right up in front of me. I mean, it's right on your website. It's right here, spacecraft and instruments. I'm looking, it's right on the left-hand side. It's an entire PDF. It says what the Hubble's capabilities are, how it maneuvers, how it changes direction.
That's just rotating the vehicle. That is not changing altitude. That is not changing trajectory. That is not changing orbit.
Okay.
That is just changing its orientation.
So you're saying that Hubble actually stays at the same altitude through every orbit, and it doesn't decay in altitude. It doesn't lose altitude.
It loses altitude because of atmospheric drag.
Okay, so when it loses altitude, so over 20 years at 330 miles, if we do the mathematics, ISS loses somewhere between 1.5 to 2 miles every 3 to 5 minutes. So what is keeping, over 20 years, Hubble should actually almost be within 10 miles of ISS.
Well,
sir, I've done the math. I don't know about you, sir, but I've done the math. At 340 miles, that's what's on your website, 15 orbits a day, Hubble should actually be nearly within 10 miles of ISS if ISS is actually at somewhere around 220, 245 miles. That's the stated standard data. I've actually seen data on NASA's website. It's clear as day. I can send you the information where actually ISS has gone from 245 miles to 190 miles above the surface of the Earth. And then it jumped. And then they fired whatever thrusters or whatever to put it back up into its normal geosync orbit.